Today's topic is going to be an overview of centerlines and profiles. What I'm going to do for this presentation, the topic, centerlines and profiles can be worked on and worked with in many of the different Carlson products. So you can do it in Carlson Survey, you can do it in Carlson Civil, Takeoff, Construction. I think I'm going to end up spending most of the time in Survey, but everything that I'm going to show can be done in any of those programs. For those of you that have not done one of the live webinars, I know they get posted and get a lot of views online after the fact, but for those of you that may not have been on a live one before, you've got a control panel somewhere over on your right. In the bottom of it, there's going to be a questions section. So we've got Karen Cummings with Carlson Software standing by in the background, and she'll be monitoring those questions that come in. If it's something that we can get to or she thinks I might be able to get to during the presentation, she's going to break in. Otherwise, we'll try to get back to you by email or one way or the other to answer those questions. So I'm starting off with a drawing here. I'm working in Survey 2015 with IntelliCAD. Some of the things I'm going to show, it is particular to 2015 for the IntelliCAD. One of the first things I want to point out is under Settings in Carlson Configure, under General Settings, in the top of this box here, there's an object linking. Now, that's always been there. Object linking is going to be here, I believe, in any of the platforms, whether you're running with IntelliCAD, the old IntelliCAD, this latest IntelliCAD 8, or any on top of an AutoCAD, and I think on the OEM. But depending on what platform, this object linking, the number of options you have here has been different. So with 2015 IntelliCAD, we actually have all the same options now that we have for running on top of AutoCAD. If you are running Carlson 2014 with IntelliCAD or earlier than 2014, the only two options here are Group, Point, Entities, and Maintain CRD History File. So with the new IntelliCAD, with the new release, they've built in all this linking, and it's going to be important. For instance, we're going to link the line work in the drawing with centerlines. So when we station our centerlines, if we change the beginning station, which I'm going to show you that, it's going to update in the drawing for us. So that is an important thing to go in and start with. All right, so the things that I'm going to show here today is just, again, it's a beginning, it's an overview, introduction for those that haven't really worked with centerlines and profiles too much. I've got a drawing here. You can see that I've got just the existing contours showing. I do have a surface, actually a couple of surfaces already built. So if I go to Surface 3D Viewer, you can see I've got an existing ground and a composite surface. So I'm just going to look at the existing. So here in our 3D viewer, I'm going to tip it up. I can exaggerate the scale just a little bit. And move my GoToWebinar thing out of the way. And then spin it around so you can kind of see what our topography looks like in here. And then I'll just go right back into that and show you the composite tin. I'm not actually sure if I'll even use this. But this is where a road design has actually been completed and merged in with that existing surface. Okay, so that I think those are the only files that I've pre-made just in preparing and getting ready for this. So I'll start off. I've got a polyline here that I'm going to define as a center line. Okay, so for those of you that may, I know we've had a lot of people switch over here lately from Land Desktop, Civil 3D. Carlson centerline files are the equivalent of an alignment file or defining an alignment in Civil 3D or Land Desktop. So what we're going to do, we've got this polyline in the drawing. It's, got our centerline curve and everything already built into it. Again, I'm under Survey, so you're going to find it under the Centerline menu. In Civil, Takeoff, Construction, you'll find this command in those as well. And I'm going to use Polyline to Centerline File command. All right, and I'm just going to give it a centerline name, so I'll just do Centerline of Road 01. I'm always very creative on these. Select the centerline, and this is kind of a neat thing. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Notice that Carlson shows these little, I call them glyphs, or little ghosted objects, but what that's telling you is the direction that it's going. If I zoom my mouse now, that's going to disappear, so it's just kind of a brief glimpse to let you know if the center line is going the direction you want it to. Notice at the command line, I can actually reverse it from here if I want. So if the polyline was not drawn the direction I want the stationing to go, I could reverse it from here. For now, we'll just start the beginning station at 0, 0. And it's been done. So that's step one. We've gotten this centerline file defined. Now, if you want to look at that centerline file definition, you can go to Input, Edit, Centerline File. Let's go ahead and actually let me station it first. So notice the name of this command, Station Polyline Centerline. And that's important because you don't technically have to create a centerline file in order to put stationing on it. You can actually just station just the polyline in your drawing if you want to. So the distance for stations, distance for intermediate stations, your labeling setup. Now there's thousands of options in here in profiles for labeling and annotation. So I'm not going to go through everything because everybody's got their own style, so to speak. But this is where you could change what your labeling looks like. The important thing I'm going to do here is, if you notice the targeting of my mouse, I'm going to have it station from the centerline file that I just created. If you haven't created a centerline file, you could do it from a 2D polyline, a 3D polyline, or even a profile polyline. Select that. What's nice is to get a little preview. All right, so I've got my stationing. I may like it and I may not. But we've got the stationing in here. Now let's go in and look at how to edit that centerline file. Maybe we've already created the centerline. Maybe now we accidentally realize that the stationing's wrong. We needed or should have started that beginning at 1,000 instead of 0. So I can go to Input, Edit, Centerline File, and tick the Load button at the bottom left here. Select the CL file. Okay, so you can see it up here. You can select on the different elements. You can double-click on any of the elements and change it if you need to. So all I'm going to do is change the starting station from 0 to 1,000 and hit my tab, and you can see the stationing now is updated. I'm going to save it and exit, and notice that the station updates automatically. Now, in earlier versions of Carlson with IntelliCAD, that update would not have happened because that linking was not available until 2015 with IntelliCAD 8, so that's a big deal. The other thing that you can do sometimes, maybe we forgot and hit an extra enter, and the center line should be going in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to hit my enter key, return to Input, Edit, Centerline File, and just real quickly show you where you can reverse the center line if you want. So it's under the Tools button here at the bottom. I can reverse, and now it has reversed everything. Notice that that's the first element in my list. Let me save it and exit, and notice my stations shift again. So my 1,000 stations back up here. And I actually want 10 plus 0, 0 at the other end, so I'm going to go in and reverse my reverse. And get it back the way I want. pretty easy. There's not a whole lot involved with Centerlines, but those are just a few little things that may not be the easiest to find and see. Next, we're going to look at creating a profile. So we've got a centerline now defined. We have surfaces defined. And so I am going to use my centerline in that existing ground 10 file, so the existing ground surface, to create the profile. Now, under Civil and Construction, I think, you're going to find this under the Profiles menu. If you're running in Carlson Survey, you're going to find all the information and all of your profiling commands under Surface. So I am going to create a profile from a grid or triangulation surface. First thing is it asks me what the surface is, so I'm going to use my existing ground. And link profile to triangulation, I've got that set to prompt, so if the surface changes, it's going to prompt me to change the profile that I create.
Jennifer?
Yes, ma'am.
There is a question that came in. Is this linking available with AutoCAD 2014 and ServCAD, or I guess Survey 2014?
Yeah, there is some linking, but what I just did with changing the centerlines and the stations, I don't think it'll update. Not with IntelliCAD. On the AutoCAD, all previous versions, if you're running it on top of AutoCAD, it will. But that is new for this version.
Okay,
hopefully that answered. If not, let me know and I'll try to clarify.
Okay.
So here it's asking for the name of the profile that we're going to write. So I'm going to do Centerline Road 1, and then this is my existing ground profile. So I'll name it that. This is creating a new profile. You can see here by the tab. And kind of watch yourself here at the command line. It's giving you an option by default to select the centerline polyline. So you may want to click and pick that centerline, the polyline in the drawing. But if you do that, you're going to lose that linkage that we just created. To keep the linkage, notice you've got a CL file. So it's more important to keep the profile that we create linked to the CL file as opposed to just the polyline in the drawing. Specify the centerline file we want to profile. It's this one. Okay, so it's created the profile. It does not go in and automatically prompt you to draw it. That's the second step. Before we draw the profile, I want to look at it. We're not going to make changes, but this is kind of a critical thing for you to see and to understand if you haven't before. So under Surface, Input, Edit Profile File. And I'm going to select that existing ground that I just created. And again, it's kind of nice. You can see the preview of it. Make sure you're selecting the right profile. All right. So here's my profile. You can see that I've got the editor up top. All of the different PVIs are listed here. Okay, so that's pretty much everywhere that centerline across the triangle face. The big thing I want you to take away from this box is this type of profile. So this is really a powerful part of Carlson. The type of profile, notice we're set to generic. This is going to change the headings. Okay, so with a generic type profile, we have station, we have elevation, we have slope. Well, if I change this type of profile to be road, we've got the same data, but now we have some additional columns here. So vertical curve. So every PVI is giving us an opportunity to add a to add a vertical curve, and that would be overkill. It's also reporting site distance at every PVI. Okay, let me just change this real quick over to sewer. So if we have a sewer type profile, notice that we still have station elevation slope. We have pipe size now. We have a rim elevation. And notice the difference. Let me pick a PVI down here in the middle. So notice the little green X. So whichever PVI I'm sitting on, it's showing me in the graphic with a green X. So each PPI with a sewer type, you can set an elevation and you can set a rim elevation. So maybe I set a rim elevation of 610. Notice what it does. So it actually does a vertical line there like that. Let's go on down the road a little bit, and if that one has a rim elevation of 610, it shows it that way as well. Obviously, this is just an existing ground profile. We don't want to do these things. I'm going to exit without saving changes, but I did want you to see just the variations and the different types of profiles and how it affects what you're doing. So I'm going to exit out of here. We're going to leave it as a generic type profile, and we're just going to draw it into the drawing. And I think mine's going to be pretty darn ugly. I was a little late signing on here because my settings got messed up. I was trying to get back to where I wanted to be. I'll select this existing ground profile. Now I could have done add multiple if I had more than one at this time. I just did the add. It's going to draw however many profiles you have in this list. So just one for now. Okay, so a few of the basics. The horizontal scale, it's actually set that to like a 30 and a 3. I'm going to have it draw grid. So with this being a generic type profile, the only thing I'm really going to have labeled is station and elevation. So let's look at the setup. So for my horizontal grid, I'm going to have a vertical line every 50 feet and a major grid line vertical at 100 feet. And I'm going to label the stationing every 100 feet along the bottom. Along the left-hand side, I'm going to have a vertical grid every 2 feet, majors at 10 feet with the elevation label at 10 feet. And just, again, there's so many settings in here, I'm not going to even try to get into too many of them, just a few basics. To change the layers that are going to be used, under the Layers button here, you can see. And these are just generic. I think they just come loaded this way with the software. You can set colors as well. I've got everything set to by layer. And then here's that second part of the profile type. So with the generic profile type, don't really have anything special that I'm going to label. But if I had a road, I would want special labeling for road type profiles. So I'll be able to set that up in here. For the sewer and the pipe type profiles, I'm going to have labeling that looks something like this. Okay. If you have pipe crossings, so on and so forth, we're going to get to all this. For now, let's just basically draw this generic existing ground profile. I'm going to set my bottom of my grid at 580. Make sure I've got some room down there. It gives me a preview of how big that grid is, so I'm just going to place it here. And 580 was kind of low. All right, and for some reason, yeah, I need my settings. I'm not even getting my elevations here. So I'm going to hit my Enter key, and I'll come back to that. But you can set it up to actually have labels and elevations come in here, and it just got messed up right before we started. But this is my basic profile. You've got so much control over it, you can get it to look exactly like you like. But rather than spend time on the labeling, which I think everybody will figure out, I want to go in and show you now the second step. So we've got this existing ground surface. What if we have a road profile? Maybe if you're an engineer and you're actually designing the road, you're probably going to use Carlson Civil, probably going to use the RoadNet, where you go through the design part of designing a profile in totally different windows. But if you're a surveyor, if you're a contractor, maybe you've already got a set of plans. That road's already been designed. So what you need to do is just go from those paper plans and plug in the profile data, like the station, the elevation, vertical curves, and so on and so forth. So just to input the profile data, we're just going to do a little road in here. I'm going to go back to the same command, input, edit, profile file. So this is the same place I was if I wanted to go in and look at a profile that I've already created, but I'm going to create a new one. So this will be centerline of road 1, PG. So this will be my proposed ground. It's a new one. Click open. All right. So if I know what my station elevation, everything is, I can just put it in here. But it may be helpful because I have that existing ground surface, that profile it's already created just as a reference. I've got an option here. I can go into reference profile, select, and just select that existing ground. Now, it just shows up in the background. Notice I can't move my cursor along and it doesn't read the elevations or anything like that, but at least I can see it. The type of road profile is going to be a road. And now I'm just going to go into the grid here and type in my stations and my starting elevation. Okay, my next station is going to be 1050, and the first grade is going to be a minus 2.08% coming off of the main road. All right, my next one is 1300 is my station, and the slope out is going to be a positive 1.6% going up. My next station will be 1650, slope minus 3%. And then my last station is going to be 1808.31 and a 1%. So that's where I'm going to end up. Now my vertical curves, because it's a road type, it's giving me a chance to enter a vertical curve. So I'm just going to put 100 in for each of these. Keep it simple. And that's all there is to it. Now, as I've got this new one in, as I move my mouse along it, the crosshairs are going to chase that proposed profile. Notice at the top it's reading just that profile information. Down here I can actually check stations. So maybe it's station 1600. I'd like to know what the elevation is and what the elevation is of my reference surface. So that's kind of a handy little tool I can find. Let's save and exit. So we've got two profiles now. If I go into surface, draw profile, I'm going to add in the road profile now. So I've got two. Pick OK. I'm going to pretty much leave everything alone. If I look at the road profile labels, you can see what the labels are going to look like. And I can make changes. I can double click on these use labels. So maybe the K value, I want to change what that looks like, and so on. And pick OK. Pick OK. Erase the existing profile, yes. And we'll leave this at 560. Give myself a little bit more room. There we go. So that's all there is to it as far as creating you see now how to create a profile from a surface, how to just create a generic one or a road profile that you type in. Any profile you've got the data for, you can just go into Input, Edit, create a new file, and enter those in. No questions, Karen? Guessing not. All right.
No, and there are no questions, and you answered the other person's questions, correct question as they need it.
Perfect. All right. So we've got just a couple other things. We're probably going to go about 45 minutes here total today. So we've got both of these. Let's now show, you know, I had one profile drawn in on this grid, and I have a second profile, and in this case, because I didn't really like the grid I started with, I just decided to redraw both profiles on a new grid, erase the old one out of the way. But maybe I've already taken the time and the effort, and I've got this grid, this profile exactly like I like, but I want to add in another profile such as pipe crossings. Okay, so the crossing type is another type of profile. That's where we just want to show an ellipse with a label that says, you know, water line, sewer line that cross. This is, again, something you can do from any of the programs that create profiles. It's also done in Input Edit Profile file. And again, we're going to do a new type. This is going to be a long road 1, and I'm just going to do crossings. Let's just do utility crossings. It's going to be helpful, again, to put a reference profile in here. So maybe we use the proposed ground this time so we can actually see that. It does show the stations. It shows the elevations on the grid. And maybe I know that at station 1250, oops, sorry, I've got to go down here, and there's a crossing type, so let me change that. At station 1250, at elevation, pick something out of the air here, let's do 596.25. We have a 6-inch gas line. Maybe at station 1425, at station 592.75, we've got a 12-inch water line. All right, so you kind of get the idea. We're going to save this, so it's saving it under our crossings profile file. Now, what you saw me do earlier is I went to Draw Profile, and I had 1 or 2 in here already, and I just added. But when I do that, it's going to redraw everything. In this case, I'm going to clear this list. So I'm going to hit the Clear button, and I'm going to add in just the crossings. And you can see what it looks like here, and the other one's right here. So here's the trick to this one. 2 things. 1, pipe crossing labels. Right now, it's just something very generic like this. Okay. I'm going to uncheck Draw Grid. Okay, so if I already have a profile on a grid in the drawing and I just want to draw a new profile like this crossings on top of that existing grid, I uncheck this. When I do that, it's going to completely ignore whatever scale settings are here or anything like that. Pick OK, and notice the magic button here is Draw on Existing Grid. So all this is going to be ignored, and it's asking me to select any piece of the existing grid. So select any entity on the existing grid. And, oh gosh, all right, I had something else set. All right.
Jennifer?
There it went. Yep.
While you're taking a, while you're looking at this, there's a question, when you add pipe crossings, the elevation is the invert elevation at that point on the profile? That's the question.
Yes, I believe it is. So, yeah, so that's not 596, and yes, I would say that's the case. I think. I don't know. Maybe it's the center. We will find out. So let me go in. I think we will find out. And let me do an Input Edit Profile file. And I am off script here, so I haven't practiced this. Let's see how this goes. And what I'll do is just change this to a whole elevation. And we'll check it that way. hit save, exit. So it's asking me if I want to update draw profile, and I'm going to say yes. And select pipe crossing center line. All right, I just hit my enter key on those. Yeah, so it's going to be the invert. Good question, though. I thought I knew that, but I wasn't sure. I think the reason that's asking me for, I think I've got a setting turned on in my draw profile, and it's asking me for that reference center line. So I'm not used to seeing that. All right, so the last thing, assuming we don't have any other questions, that's pretty easy, but I think I like that command. It just makes things very simple. Sometimes that's just all you want to do is just get that label in there real easily. And I do want to stress that you can do anything at all you want with these, with the way the grid looks, the way the profiles look, the way the labeling looks. You've just got 1,000 options. Let's just real quickly look at a sewer type profile. I'm not going to do much with it, but I do want you to just kind of see that. If I go to surface, actually let's look at the drawing here. So you can see I do have a storm system that was drawn with Carlson's hydrology. Okay, so I've got manholes 1, 2, 3, I've got 4 as an outlet, and then 5 here. Again, mine's going to look junky because all my settings got upset. If I go to surface and input edit profile file, you will notice that this is a profile file exported from Carlson hydrology. That is my manholes. So from manhole 4 to manhole 1. And you can see this is a sewer type. So this was already created for me. If you needed to make your own, it's just that easy. You just fill in the blanks here, set the correct type of profile. Okay. You can see we've got a drop manhole here. And this will be an outlet at the bottom. And if I go in and I draw that one, I'm going to clear out my list and just draw that storm standalone. Now this, even though, so this could be exported 2 different ways. Just kind of talk about this for a second. And it probably should be exported 2 different ways. Manhole 1, 2, and 3 go parallel to this center line, and so you could also show these pipes on this profile. What I did, though, is I wanted to see one standalone pipe profile run that went from 1 to 2 to 3 out to here. So it actually went perpendicular to the center line. So I'm going to draw this on a whole new profile grid. So I've added in my profile name. Okay, I'm going to turn draw grid back on. And the sewer pipe profile labels, I think, are pretty ugly right now. Let's just draw it once, and then we'll go in and make a couple changes. Pick OK. And grid bottom, go with that. All right, so I got some pretty ugly pipes, manholes, and labels. So let me hit my enter key. I'm going to repeat that command. Let's go in and make just a few changes. And under sewer pipe profile labels, let's see, a few things. Notice you've got a general tab. There's a manhole tab. So for instance, one thing I'd like to see is the manhole name. And if I pick setup, I can get specific. So I'm going to show the manhole name in a circle. It's going on this layer. It's going to be above the manhole. You know, there's a few specifics here. If I pick update preview, see if we get lucky, it's going to look something like that. Draw manhole separate from pipe polylines. I don't think we're going to see much difference here. If I, oh yeah, okay. So I did an update preview, and you can see it's going to look a little different. It's showing a manhole top width of 2, manhole bottom width of 4, so that's why we have that taper. Maybe that's not what I want. Now, if you've used Carlson hydrology, you can export and you'll get all this stuff anyway. without manually having to do it. The pipe size is all I'm showing here. Maybe I want to show the pipe material, the length of pipe, and maybe the pipe slope. If I pick Update Preview, you can see it just kind of pushes it all together here. We can reorder. So maybe I wanted to say, 10-inch or 12-inch RCP, or maybe, let's put distance up front. So I'm doing the up arrow. So we'll do the pipe distance or pipe length. We double click and we're going to say so many linear feet of, and I'll do a space. And then we'll do the pipe size, and I'll leave off the type of pipe. So many inches. And then material. I think that'll come from hydrology too. And the slope at certain percent. So anyway, it's going to be close. You can kind of get the idea here. 125 linear feet, a 24-inch PVC at 4. So the 24-inch, the PVC, the 4%, that's just placeholder text. Pick OK, pick OK. We're going to redraw this. And ta-da. Nah, so my arrows up here, probably don't want that. But you kind of get the idea. Again, this PRO file was actually generated and exported from hydrology, so that makes it kind of easy. The last thing I'm going to mention here, let me just go right back into Draw Profile real quickly. I'm not going to redraw.
One more question, Jennifer. Sometimes Carlson won't accept a 2D polyline for a profile. Are there any polyline properties that need to be set a certain way to work?
A 2D polyline for a profile. I'm not sure what that means. Can you unmute this person and let them ask?
Let's see. I have to figure out who asked that.
And see if they have a microphone. If they don't have a microphone or they didn't call in on a telephone, unmuting them won't do any good. But well, whoever it is, I forgot we have a huge, pretty decent crowd in here today. If we're not able to unmute you and get you to ask this verbally, how about just put a little bit more information in the chat box or in the question window, and I will follow up with you on that. And if anyone else is interested in the answer, let me know, and I will pass that along to whoever's interested. All right, Karen, while you're looking that up, I'll just finish this part up real quick. So the last thing.
She wrote, let's see, when you do a standard roadway profile and you want a 25-foot left and right offset, is there a way to get the profile graph to print out the elevations of only the center line proposed and existing elevations and not the 25-foot offset elevation label?
I'll probably have to look at that. Still kind of, I guess too little detail is a little confusing, and too much detail is sometimes confusing. Whoever that is, I should get the Karen. You're going to send me those questions, I assume. I'll follow up with that person and try to look at that specifically. So the last thing that I want to mention here are the all-important buttons of load settings and save settings. So it will, I've mentioned a few times that there are thousands of little options in these boxes. Once you take the time to get all those thousands of options set just like you like, you get all your road profiles set up and they're labeled just the way you like them, and the sewer pipes are just the way that you like them, you'll want to hit the Save Settings button here. And this will export those profile settings as a PFS file. Now, this may be a company standard. I always kind of point out to people, if you're doing, if you have a profile that you draw in for existing sewer, and you have it also draw proposed sewer, you may have different layers. So you may need to create multiple PFS files, one if you're doing existing, one if you're doing proposed, and things like that. You can see that by default it's put it in my settings folder, and you can see there's already some here. So one thing that you could do, the CSW is Carlson software. If any of you have called into tech support on profiles or hydrology, you've probably talked to Mark Long, and he's kind of brilliant at this stuff, but he created these, and they come with the install of Carlson. So if you're not sure, and actually let me just show you this, if you don't have your own settings, one thing you may do is just go in and tell it to load settings and pick one of these options. So NCS, C Road, I have no idea. Let me just pick that one. I'm not sure what it's going to show, but notice that draw sheet, I'm actually going to turn that off. I don't want that for right now. But I've got some options turned on. My road profiles don't look a lot different. Okay, so we've got some different options here. Let's just pick OK. Let's just redraw this. All right, so we got a really long line sticking up above, but all right, may not be exactly like what we're looking for, but the different PFS files, you can either save your own or load some of these in. Maybe you load one in, make your own changes, do a save as for the settings to save it under your own company name, so you can go back and reuse it.